People always ask me, Garrett, where do you get the money for your adventures? And a common misconception is that bike touring is really expensive. The average American spends about $2,000 on a one-week vacation. This weekend, I'm going to ride my bike from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. The trip's going to take me about 7 days. I'm going to include the cost of all my gear, the expenses, a rental car from Washington, D.C. back to Pittsburgh, and I'm pretty sure I can do it all for less than $2,000. So we're going to get to the bottom of how much bike touring actually costs. So what's the plan? Right now, I'm waiting for a buddy to meet me in Pittsburgh. We are going to ride the Great Allegheny Passageway and the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal towpath. That's a mouthful, so it's been shortened down to the Gap and C&O Trail. It's a continuous bike path that goes from Pittsburgh to DC over roughly 330 miles. We're going to split that riding up into 5, maybe 6 days, and we'll be gone for a total of 7. I'm going to come at this from the perspective of a person who's never gone bike touring before, maybe has none of the gear. I'm going to run you through all the gear you're going to need and how much it costs. Then I'm going to track my expenses, and I'm going to include things like accommodation and transportation. I set this challenge up to prove a point that bike touring isn't really that expensive, especially once you get the gear and you're set up to go. It makes the barrier so much lower and so much more inexpensive for you to go for weekenders or week-long trips. To do this challenge, I didn't want to buy a bunch of brand new or used gear and spend a bunch of my own money, especially when I have a gear closet full of stuff already. So I set a couple rules up. If I already own it and it's in used and terrible condition,
Camping gear, a little bougier than mine.
Well, what I ended up doing is I grabbed all my old shit.
What?
I can find 3 comparable items on Facebook Marketplace, take an average of all those costs, and then apply that value to what I already own. So a lot of times, if you are buying used, which I highly recommend you do, you'll have something that's in a little bit better condition than what I'm even using in the first place. So our first and most important category is a bike. The best bike is the bike that you have. If you already have a bike, chances are you can retrofit some bags to that bike, save yourself quite a bit of money, because this is a massive chunk of your gear budget. This is an incredible bike right here, and I bought it for $75. This is the Trek 520. It's a classic Trek touring bike. It's extremely reliable, and when I bought it, it was in horrible shape. So I don't really recommend that you spend $75 on a bike because you're going to be a lot of work away from your first bike tour. But what I do recommend is that you look for a steel, touring-oriented bike that fits you well. Some of the things you're looking for are braze-ons right here, so you can attach a rack and connect bottle cages. That way it's a lot easier to store cargo on your bike. You're looking for something with fairly straight wheels, not too much of a wobble in it, and is ideally from a reliable manufacturer, but that just helps you with resale. So out of 6 bikes that I found on Marketplace that I thought were fairly suitable, the average cost of those were about $260. On top of that, you're going to probably want to replace the saddle, so you have something nice and comfortable. Those range for anywhere from $70 to $150. You're going to want to get a professional tune-up, which floats around $100, and you're going to want to replace the treads. Make sure you have some nice, reliable treads on the bike. So we are going to move the entire bicycle budget up to $500. That's on the low end for a lot of people's bikes. But if you're creative on Marketplace and you put the time in, you can easily find a bike that's suitable. If you already have a bike, just use that one. There are plenty of opportunities down the line to spend money on bikes. And when it comes time to upgrade, you'll be able to get a decent resale value from a fully restored and functioning bicycle, and you can put that towards your next purchase. That bike is an absolute beauty, and I love it, honestly. That Trek and I have been through so much. It was built in 1988, and it took me over 6,000 miles across the country from Detroit to LA. The bulk of your cost now, after your bike, is going to go into your gear. This stuff adds up quickly. So keeping a very tidy and short gear list really helps you save a lot of money in the long run. I'm going to put the full gear list of everything I recommend bringing down in the description below, especially early on. Keeping this simple and getting an understanding of what you really like to utilize while you're out camping is an important first step. The first and most important item is a helmet. If you're going to be riding a bike, just wear a helmet. I have a bunch of varieties of these things. They just kick around my house because I lend them to friends. I linked one in the description below that's about $45.99. and it's equipped with MIPS. And MIPS is multi-directional impact protection, and it's honestly really important life-saving technology. A lot of bikes that you look at on Marketplace aren't necessarily going to come with a rack like this one, so I included it in the budget at $30. The next item that you're going to need to pair with this is some bike bags. I've used a variety of bike bags in the past, and I've never found more value and function than any other brand than Ortlieb. This handlebar box, this is fully waterproof, great for navigation and storing handheld things. And that comes in at about 40 bucks. But I usually pair a handlebar bag like this and 2 of these rear saddle bags. That would be about 45 liters of storage on the bike total. And I was able to find 3 sets of these used on Marketplace for $91.66. And I also have a little feed bag. This thing is a cheap one that I bought on Amazon many years ago and have used for many, many miles. It even has a little bit of Cholula packet in there. This one comes in at $14.99. Spent a total of $178.31 on bags. The next thing that can get really expensive is your sleeping system. I have this old thing right here. It's an REI bag that I bought in 2006. It's a 30-degree bag. And in my experience, the best place to buy sleeping bags is at the REI garage sale. For this old thing, I have spent 400 plus nights in this sleeping bag. And I found 6 used and new options to average out the cost of this at $59. Whatever you buy used will probably be in better shape than this sleeping bag, and it certainly will smell better. The next item is a tent. This here is a 2-person backpacking tent from Big Agnes that I bought in roughly 2012. So it's 12 years old. I've spent well over 300 nights in this tent and is worth probably, I presume, about $50. I don't even think I'd give this tent away to somebody. But I found 6 options on Marketplace that are similar to this tent right here, and averages out to about $115. And this is a ground pad. This is just an insulated sheet to keep me off the ground. This one happens to be a Thermarest, but I found a very comparable one on AliExpress for $12. That I will link in the description below. So you can find something very affordable just like this. That takes the entire sleep setup to $186.56. The next thing are going to be some layers. I like to bring thermal long johns and a thermal top. It's really compact, really affordable insulation. Both of these are under $15. And a rain jacket. This is a rain jacket I've had for a long time. It's not worth very much anymore, but it is fairly waterproof. The suggestion I always give people are Frog Tog. Frog Tog makes great rain gear for a really affordable price. It's only 20 bucks. You can get a rain jacket and rain pants. Thru hikers swear by the Frog Tog setup, and they bring them hundreds of thousands of miles all across the United States. And for a budget rain jacket option, you really can't get much better than Frog Tog. So the total cost of a couple of base layers and an outer shell would be about $45.47. Moving on to the kitchen, there's some amazing deals in this right here. You're going to want to be able to cook food. You're going to want to have coffee. You're going to want to be able to have a little bit of pasta. So you're going to bring a camping stove with you. I have this BRS 3000T. It's at $16.95 on Amazon. It's a titanium stove. It's a great deal. You're going to want a mini Bic. That's about $2. And then a titanium pot. This one's a Tokes 750 mil cup/pot. Pairs really well with this stove. And it comes in at $26.24. You can't beat that deal. Additionally, you're going to want to purify some water. So I have some Aqua tabs. Get a few sheets of this for $9. That way, if you do need to grab water from a natural source, you can make potable drinking water on the fly. And you're also going to want a few of these bottles. You can find these at thrift shops. You can find them at your parents' house. You can find them wherever. But it's important that it has this little notch right here because that's what holds it into your bottle holder on your bicycle. But I'm going to link below 2 bottles and 2 cages that come in a package from Amazon for about $18. A couple of important accessories you're going to want is a power bank. This is a 10,000 milliamp hour Anchor power bank. They're $20. grab one of these, indispensable, and a rechargeable headlamp. This one's a Nightcore NU25, roughly $35. This will get your accessories up to the $57 range. Next up is some first aid stuff. I have this first aid kit that I've just had kicking around forever and haven't used, but it has all the typical things in a very basic first aid kit. You're not going to need much. I linked one below that comes in at about $3.67. And you're going to want a little trowel like this and a little bit of toilet paper. This thing just helps you dig a hole in case you need to go number 2 in the forest. Those are $3. Grab it on Amazon. Dig a hole. Please don't be leaving your poop all over the place. And lastly, you're going to want to grab things to fix the bike as you go along. I have a whole video dedicated to common repair scenarios you might see, but this is a very basic and minimalistic kit that's going to work just fine for the trail that I'm going to do. You're going to grab an extra tube. Those are $9. You're going to want a tail light for your bike. You don't really want to skimp on one of these. You want it nice and bright, easy to see. I linked one below that I really recommend. You can find multi-tools on Marketplace all the time. They get really spendy. This has a ton of tools to fix your bike. This one was $15. You're going to want a couple tire levers. These come in around $12. You can find a portable bicycle pump for $10 on Marketplace. I have a bunch of varieties of those. You're going to want a patch kit as well. This is so you can patch your tube if you get a puncture. They're $10 and they'll save you a ton of money on tubes because you can repair a tube 10 or 15 times with that $10 investment. You're going to want to grab a master link. Those are super cheap. Just have one in your bike. And you're going to need some chain lube. So that's pretty much all the things you're going to need to buy for your trip. Additionally, you're going to want to grab a few things from home to supplement that list. Like you're going to need 2 t-shirts, one for camp and one for riding. Ideally, they're not cotton. You're also going to want 2 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of underwear. You're going to need a fleece, some gloves, a warm hat, you need a kitchen rag to clean out your pot. You're going to need a toothbrush, toothpaste, and dental floss. You're going to need your charging cables for your cell phone, your charging block to get the power bank charged up. So if you combine $685 for that gear plus your $500 for your bike, you're at $1,185 total. So that leaves a little over $800 left for me to ride my bike from Pittsburgh down to DC. We're going to see if we can make that happen. So let's go have a little bit of fun this weekend. While I was trying to sleep last night, it occurred to me I haven't even so much as opened this tent in 4 years. I think I took good care of it. We are definitely going to be encountering some rain. It's looking a little moldy. I'm not going to lie about that. Why does it smell like pee?
I know why it smells like pee.
I think this is actually in good shape. That's just another great reminder. If you're going to buy some used and weird stuff off the internet, just make sure you try it before you take it out on the road. One thing that I didn't include in the previous gear list was some zip ties. And in this situation, I'm definitely bringing zip ties because this bag is broken. I've known it's been broken for a long time. And when you're using used gear like this, especially with some age on it, retrofitting is just a part of the game. Oh my God, there is so much space in these bags. Since there's so much rain coming on the forecast, I made a few last minute additions, one of which is camp shoes. That's my whole setup. I got the 2 Ortlieb panniers here. This is my tent and ground pad. And then I have this accessory box up front where I can grab snacks, electronics, things I need to get through throughout the day. I've got these 2 water bottles here, which are 750 milliliters each, and then a 1 liter Nalgene in the top deck. This little tarp here is the ground cloth for my tent. And since it's gonna be raining, my rear tire is gonna be splashing a ton of water up into this area, and I don't wanna get my ground pad wet for when I get to camp tonight, and I don't wanna get my tent wet either. It's not the most glamorous setup, but for just about $1,100, this is a really good situation. When I'm trying to estimate the cost of a trip, I'll typically use $1 per mile as a starting point. We are gonna head towards Washington, DC. You ready?
I'm ready.
Day one of any tour can be a bit expensive because you need to stock up on a few things like snacks and coffee grounds.
We're gonna try and hit a little grocery store and have a sandwich for dinner.
All I'm living for is Sammy time, dude.
Oh yeah, baby.
I can tell you, after crunching a few numbers, this is the most expensive tour I've done by far. The first day of riding, we covered 35 miles. I spent a total of $69. That's between the campsite, going out for dinner,
This is the Gap Trail campground.
and hitting up Giant Eagle for groceries and breakfast.
'Tis the season for some crispy pumpkin downs, baby. Let's go. This is what you're doing when you're shopping for bike touring. You're just trying to get as many artificially flavored calories as possible.
We're going to try to ride down to Ohio Pile. On day 2, we covered 46 miles, and it was shaping up to be really inexpensive, but I got carried away at dinner and I ordered 2 entrees, totaling a little over $35 on that meal alone, bringing our daily total to $44, but tracking nicely. Day 3 was our longest day of riding, and we covered 74 miles. I spent a total of $78, sticking to the theme of my biggest expense, eating at restaurants. 57 of the 78 I spent today went towards food. Luckily, the YMCA in Cumberland offers camping for $15.
I popped over to the YMCA here in Cumberland.
Day 4 is when the spending really started. We covered 31 miles and I spent $120. When it's raining, it's way easier to indulge. So we went to 2 places for coffee that morning, and we stayed at a bed and breakfast that night so we could dry out.
Both of our everything is wet.
On day 5, we covered 61 miles, but the rain didn't clear up like it was supposed to. It rained so much that we spent well over an hour in this IHOP, warming up and sipping coffee.
My feet are really cold. My shoes are holding onto a lot of water.
We needed to cover more miles, but nothing sounded better than a warm bed and pizza. So to encourage ourselves to keep moving, we booked a hotel room.
99% of people would probably get a hotel tonight, given how much mud we've been experiencing. We're just head to toe filth.
Brought our total for the day up to $113.
Dude, that anapasta salad right there.
Delicious.
My ass.
Turns out rain is expensive. Day 6, we were much more in line with what I'm used to spending on trips like this. We covered 56 miles, found some free subs on the side of the road.
That's awesome. Thank you.
We cooked our own food and we stayed in one of the many free campsites along the way. Our day's total was only $23.50. And on day 7, our last day, we covered 55 miles. Felt weirdly remote given how close we were to Washington, D.C. And we just took a quick stop for lunch. We spent a total of $21. The main contributing factor to this day being so inexpensive is utilizing warm showers for a place to stay. Turns out the only thing harder than riding a bicycle into an airport
A lot of messing around. A lot of sketchy little moments there in the airport.
is loading 2 of them into a Kia Soul. But we managed. We covered roughly 250 miles driving from Washington, D.C. back to Pittsburgh. And we spent about $158 on gas, food, and the rental car, bringing our grand total of the 7 days of cycling to $629. Add that to the gear costs before the trip, and it was roughly $1,800. So I did beat the $2,000 goal after all.
We are in the rental.
I definitely spent more than I typically would on a trip like this. This can be as cheap as you want it to be and as expensive as you want it to be, but I think this is a realistic example of how much you could expect to spend on your first bike trip. You'll probably get a hotel, maybe 2. You'll do some camping. You're going to eat a bunch of food out. You're going to cook a bit of food for yourself. You can see on the more expensive days where I spent $130, and then some of the cheaper days where I spent $25, $23. Those are really affordable days, really adventurous and fun. The Gap and C&O Trail is a great place to start. It's in the backyard of millions of people as well. And I don't even think you should commit to a full 7 days on the trail if this is your first ever trip. Try out a 1-nighter, maybe a 2-nighter. Slowly build up the gear. You could just start with a bike and a backpack and just ride to a hotel for a night and then ride home. And that's plenty of fun on its own. I think biking, cycling, especially long distance, is an excellent community to be a part of. Keeps you healthy, keeps you sane, keeps you looking forward to the next thing. And it's something I spend so much of my free time doing because I find so much value in it. I think that a lot of people put the cart before the horse in this situation. They want the perfect bike and the perfect tent and the perfect jacket, and they spend thousands of dollars on gear. And then when it comes time to do the trip, they don't have any money left to go out and use it. And when they do use it, they're so careful with it and so meticulous that they have a hard time enjoying themselves, and they take things very seriously. I think that this doesn't need to be such a gear-forward sport, and it should be more of a joy and affordability-forward sport. Let me know if you want me to do a minimum budget, as cheap as I possibly can in the future. And maybe in the spring, I'll go do something as cheap as humanly possible just to see what the bottom budget could be in 2025. Have you got some trips coming up on your own? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to start a little bit of community discussion down there. Give some suggestions if you have done some beginner bikepacking trips and bike touring trips. In about 7 days, maybe 8 from now, I'm going to release the full film of what Mac and I got up to all the way from Pittsburgh down to DC. It's about 30 minutes. Check it out.